Have you struggled with bitterness and unforgiveness towards the narcissist and the abuse they cause? At the end, I will share how to conquer bitterness and unforgiveness quickly and effectively. And some of the points are really immediate and very effective. Bitterness and unforgiveness often manifest as a state of being emotionally trapped rather than moving towards indifference. While anger is a natural response to the injustice of narcissistic abuse, bitterness is distinguished by internal consumption that prevents personal growth and keeps the victim emotionally bound to the narcissist. Bitterness and unforgiveness often manifest as a state of being emotionally trapped, where a person's internal peace remains dependent on the reactions or downfall of the narcissist. Bitterness and unforgiveness following narcissistic abuse often manifest as deep-seated emotional and physical responses to unresolved trauma. These signs frequently indicate that a survivor is still processing the harm rather than being petty or unable to let go an abuser might claim. Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm studying to become a life coach, specializing in narcissistic abuse and trauma recovery. I hope my videos are helpful, informative, and validating for you, whether you are presently in or have been in a narcissistic abusive relationship, or have a friend or family member that presently is or has been in a narcissistic abusive relationship. Or maybe you have a friend or family member that is a narcissist, a boss, a colleague, a roommate. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. I came up with this video as I was suffering this week from unforgiveness from past narcissistic abusers. I had to forgive all over again. I had to work through forgiveness many times. Forgiveness is not linear. One often has to forgive over and over again. In the Bible, it says one should forgive 70 times 7. This means that we need to keep forgiving. Forgiveness does not mean you're saying that the wrong that has been done to you is right, but you're releasing that person. It is freeing yourself of a bondage. The other person you're bitter towards and unforgiving to may not even be aware of how you're feeling. The forgiveness is doing yourself a favor. I do not believe in forgiving and forgetting. We do not need to remember the grudge, but rather remember not to trust the person and set firm boundaries with them. It is even okay to not allow them in your life, but at the same time forgiving them and letting go of what they did. Doing this even helps with emotional recovery and healing. Signs that an individual is struggling with bitterness and unforgiveness towards a narcissist include excessive rumination, frequently replaying past offenses in your mind, which often leads to a feeling of being stuck or unable to experience joy in the present. There is also an attempt to make sense of the injustice or a desperate desire to make the abuser understand the pain they caused. Desire for vindication of revenge, feeling unable to find peace until the narcissist is punished, publicly exposed, or suffers as you did, harboring secret wishes for the abuser to fail, disappear, or suffer justice for their actions. The best revenge is to be indifferent and find emotional healing. Becoming skeptical of others' lives or emotionally shutting down when new people attempt to get close. Viewing others through a lens of past betrayal, using sarcasm or cynicism as a primary way of communication about the person or past relationship. Persistent contempt, feelings of disdain, scorn, or revulsion towards the person, which can eventually mirror the same contentious treatment received from the narcissist. Heightened triggers even when the narcissist is not present. Thinking about past events triggers intense physical tension, irritability, or anger, allowing that anger to remain a main focus of your life. Relational avoidance, defaulting to sarcasm or positive aggressive behavior and other relationships as a defense mechanism against potential hurt, acting out of resentment through avoidance, subtle hostility, or making mistakes on purpose to express displeasure. Spiritual, physical, or emotional disconnection, feeling a sense of emotional disconnect or numbness, where positive emotions feel threatened or unreachable. Spiritual tension, feeling it spiritually disconnected or defensive during teachings on grace. Physical tension, manifesting internal stress as physical irritability, restlessness, or fatigue. Exaggerating the offense. In some cases, a person may find themselves constantly magnifying or revisiting the degree of hurt or narcissist reactions, a way to validate their continued refusal to forgive. Hypervigilance and reactivity, Victims remain on high alert, scanning for signs of further manipulation or narcissistic rage. Unforgiveness can manifest as extreme overreactions to even slight offenses and inability to stay positive about the abuser. Persistent resentment and anger. A survivor may feel constant undercurrent of irritation or experience sudden bursts of rage when triggered by memories, current encounters, or desire for revenge as a way to cope with internalized pain. It is crucial to distinguish between unhealthy bitterness and healthy setting of boundaries. Abusers label survivors' distance or refusal to let go as bitterness to shift to blame. In reality, remembering the facts and choosing not to engage with someone who has shown consistent disrespect is a form of respect and protection, not necessarily a sign of a grudge. Victims of narcissistic abuse who struggle with bitterness and unforgiveness often exhibit behavioral shifts that impact their interactions with both the abuser and new healthy individuals. These reactions are typically self-protective mechanisms following prolonged psychological damage. Behaviors towards new and healthy relationships. Deep mistrust. Survivors often project their past experiences onto new acquaintances, assuming others have ulterior motives or are also capable of expert manipulation. This can cause them to keep walls up to prevent anyone from getting close enough to exert control again. Bitterness can lead to generalized mistrust of others, sometimes extending to an entire agenda. For example, all men are dogs, as a defensive barrier against further hurt. Bitterness can cause victims to become overly cautious with their words, use roundabout ways to communicate to avoid perceived conflict, or even become socially awkward due to a loss of straightforwardness. Emotional numbness or irritability. The weight of unforgiveness can lead to a general lack of patience or inability to feel joy, making it difficult for the victim to care for or connect with others. Bitterness may lead to victims to see others through a black or white lens, seeing only negative in people or becoming overly critical as a preemptive defense against being hurt again. Choosing isolation often feels safer than risking new connections, which can lead to chronic loneliness and isolation. In an effort to validate their experience, a bitter survivor may actively campaign for others to share their negative view of the abuser, potentially causing division in families or groups. Self-gaslighting. The internal bitterness can often pair with intense self-doubt. Victims may question their own reality or believe they are too much for healthy people to handle, further pushing others away. If contact remains with the narcissist only in the case of shared children, using snide remarks or passive-aggressive texts can express underlying hurt. I don't recommend contact with the narcissist otherwise. Dealing with bitterness and unforgiveness after narcissistic abuse requires shifting focus from the abuser to your own emotional and physical recovery. Healing is not linear. Effective strategies can help reduce the weight of these feelings. I have videos on how narcissistic abuse does not define you, complex trauma, reclaiming yourself after narcissistic abuse, and trauma responses. The links are below in the description. The following is repercussions from bitterness and unforgiveness. Physical repercussions, cardiovascular issues. Sustained stress elevates heart rate and blood pressure, increasing the risk for hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. Weakened immune system. Chronic stress hormones suppress immune function. Increased inflammation contributes to chronic pain and autoimmune disorders. Rumination and agitation lead to poor sleep quality, insomnia, or nightmares related to the trauma of the relationship. It is normal to have insomnia and nightmares after being traumatized. Chronic stress symptoms. Long-term unforgiveness can manifest physically as headaches, muscle tension, and digestive issues. You can also have these symptoms from trauma. Increased cortisol. Constant release of stress hormones like cortisol takes a significant physical toll and can cause weight gain. Emotional and mental repercussions. Unforgiveness is strongly leading to increased anxiety, hostility, depression, and major psychiatric disorders. You can experience anxiety and depression from trauma and grief. Ongoing anger, irritability, and resentment, making you feel constantly at odds with others. Emotional numbness is a protective shield. It can lead to hiding from your own needs and feelings. Emotional numbness can also be a form of emotional dissociation and trauma. Your mind becomes consumed by the offender and the hurt, preventing enjoyment of the present. If you allow this, you are still letting the abuser control you. The vicious cycle. The offender controls your thoughts and emotions, draining your energy. Prisoner of the past, you become trapped, unable to move forward or experience true freedom and peace. Letting go causes emotional healing and freedom. Self-inflicted harm. You suffer twice, from the original injury and from the festering bitterness, which acts like a poison, harming you more than the person who wronged you. Emotional numbness, resentment, and damaged relationships trap you in the past and control your present thoughts and feelings. Essentially, holding on to grudges harms your own well-being, making you sick and preventing peace and joy, much like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. Be kind to yourself, as some of the above symptoms can also be from trauma and emotional disconnection, as mentioned. So if you experience some of these feelings or symptoms, it does not automatically mean you are bitter and unforgiving, but it also can mean that as well. If you like my video and find it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, and let me know if you have or are presently struggling with unforgiveness and bitterness in the comments below. There is no judgment here. And I ask other people commenting to make no judgments and be kind towards others. I would really like to hear your stories in the comments below. Now I will share some quick and effective ways to conquer unforgiveness and bitterness. Accept that the abuser is unlikely to change or take accountability. Radical acceptance means acknowledging the reality of the harm without condoning it, which helps stop the exhausting cycle of searching for closure. Bottled up hatred can stall healing. Find private outlets such as screaming in a safe space, hitting a pillow, or visiting a rage room to physically release intensity. I went for therapy a few years back, specializing in betrayal trauma. The therapist had me write a letter of rage to the abuser who cheated on me. I was to destroy it. Then she had me screaming in anger and rage of whatever I felt, punching in a punch bag. I found immediate relief. This is an extremely effective way to heal emotionally. Keep a validation journal to record exactly what happened. This counters gaslighting and serves as a reality to check when you feel tempted to doubt your perceptions or rationalize abuser's behavior. Understand that forgiveness is your peace, not the abuser's benefit. Some experts suggest that some transgressions may be unforgivable, and deep acceptance of that fact can be a form of strength in itself. Seek specialized therapy in narcissistic abuse and trauma to process painful memories and reduce emotional attachment to the abuser. If possible, remain no contact to stop the influx of new triggers. If you must communicate, be as boring and unresponsive as possible and keep interactions strictly businesslike. Join a support group specializing in narcissistic abuse or trauma where you can share experiences without judgment. Validating others' experiences often helps justify subsequently release your own anger. Shift the focus from the abuser's actions to your own self-blame. Forgive yourself for staying, for ignoring the red flags, or for being tricked. Recognize that you did the best you could with the information you had at the time. Reconnect with old hobbies and discover new ones that were suppressed during the relationship. Rebuilding your own life is often the most effective way to diminish the central role the abuser plays in your mind. I will see you in the next video.